What's going on, everybody? My name is Ben and welcome back to the bench for another episode of our Sci-Fi Wednesdays T70 X-Wing by Bandai in 1/72nd scale. Now we have the entire aircraft nicely overcoated with gray Stynylrez primer. Love that stuff. So now we're going to go ahead and try to see what we can do for the other colors, the white and the green. Now, Bandai has a very nice little spread here of all the different colors we're going to need for painting the X-Wing. And that's going to be a real big help because as you can see, there's certain sections that are painted green, then there's certain sections that are white. There's some different accents like gray and red and some silver accents here and there. So we have a lot of, I think, very basic painting we're going to have to go ahead and do, which means, of course, masking. Now, for the green color, I've been kind of digging through my paint supplies and I've actually come across this Tamiya JA Green. I think that's going to be a really nice color to go ahead and use. Plus it's Tamiya and I love Tamiya paint anyway, so we can go ahead and thin that out with isopropyl alcohol, 70%. So that should allow us to just have fun with this and airbrush that green color. Now for the other color, like the white color, we're going to be using the Tamiya flat white. It's just basic Tamiya paint, guys. Shouldn't be any trouble. Again, thin it out with isopropyl, no problem. Now, of course, before we go ahead and get into the painting, I want to go ahead and take care of a couple of little seam lines. We need to go ahead and sand down a few bits and pieces of plastic that are remaining from when we clipped off certain pieces from the sprue. And to do that, I'm going to take some jeweler files and some sandpaper, maybe some X-Acto knives, and I'm just going to go ahead and cut off and shave down and sand out a few of these little imperfections that were left from when I clipped different parts off the sprue. The nice thing about Bandai is they typically have very, very nice, easy fitting parts, but every once in a while you do get a sprue that kind of hangs on a little bit. So we want to go in here and just make sure everything is nice and smooth. Now, a little trick, I'm sure you all know, but a little trick that I have found that works really, really well is when going ahead and having to sand into very delicate or really close, very tight areas. What I do is I take a piece of sandpaper and I cut a very small strip, right, like that off of the main portion of it. And then I just take that and I will actually fold that around something small and cylindrical. In this case, we're just going to use some sprue. And I can go ahead and just wrap the sandpaper around itself and then use that sprue as kind of a handhold. And once we get that tightly wrapped, we can then just take that end and put it right where we need it to go and just sand down the areas. This is probably pretty common knowledge, but just in case someone may not know, that's a really good way to go ahead and get into those hard to reach areas. So let's go ahead and jump into our very first time lapse, and I want to go ahead and focus on some pre-shade. I'm going to use Tamiya NATO Black, and we're going to overcoat certain panel lines and just pick out a couple of panels here and there that we can kind of hopefully give a little contrast when we go ahead and overcoat those areas with flat white. So let's grab our airbrush, grab some isopropyl, grab our Tamiya NATO Black. Let's mix it up and see what we can do, guys. And now after we have all of the white airbrushed onto the aircraft itself, we're going to go ahead and turn our attention over to the green sections, and that's going to require some masking. So we're going to grab our Tamiya tape, and I'm going to use the 6mm here. We're actually going to cut these into smaller strips, and then we're going to come in and use those small strips to go ahead and outline all the demarcations between the white and the green. So it's going to take a little bit of clever masking, but I don't think it's going to be too bad, but it will take some time. Then we'll use some blue Scotch painter's tape to go ahead and cover over the larger sections, and I think we'll be good to go. So let's go ahead and push in here, get this masking done for the green areas. Fingers crossed, this works out perfectly. Alright guys, wow, that was a lot of masking. It took me several hours to go ahead and get this all nicely squared away, but we are ready now to go ahead and jump in with that JA green. Now we did find some Vallejo pale camel green, but you know what, to be honest, it's a little too thick. I'm going to stick with the Tamiya JA green. We're going to use that for all the areas that are nicely now unmasked. Hopefully we'll have a very nice clean demarcation line between the white and the green, and I think we are in good position, guys. Let's push on, get that green all nicely applied. Alright everybody, we are back, and as you can see, the X-Wing is more or less painted in its basic colors. We have flat white and we have that JA green. It looks pretty good, and Tamiya gave us a very nice demarcation line between the white and the green, so I am happy. Now, of course, there's other detail painting that we have to go ahead and do, such as the S-foils have some details there in gray, as well as red, and then of course we have the guns. We have to go ahead and paint the very tips of those, kind of a metallic color, as well as the engines, and then of course the intake. There's a lot of detail painting we still have to do, but I don't think it's going to be as bad. I think it's going to be a very easy masking job, and it should be kind of fun. I'm really happy with how this has turned out. I was worried that I was going to have a green that didn't quite work, but luckily I had that JA green, and I think that works perfectly for what I'm going for. Of course, that does beg the question of how we're going to weather this, but we'll go ahead and tackle that a little bit later. Now, in terms of detail painting, guys, we're probably going to have to come in here and paint the intake lips kind of a metallic, kind of a dark steel color, and we're also going to have to paint a little bit of a strip of red around each of the intakes. Luckily for us, Bandai has a wonderful color call out here that shows all the little angles, and we have a little strip of that metallic silver right underneath those intakes, so that'll have to be masked and painted. And then of course we have red that we have to go ahead and paint on not only the S-foils and around the engines, but also around the intakes, so that has to be done as well. One little discrepancy I did notice here is the plastic parts showed right down here were completely green on the actual kit, but here in the pictures they show a little bit of an angled white section right on the front of each of these landing gear bay covers, so I'm probably going to have to come back and maybe do a little bit of painting, maybe mask that off and shoot it with white, but I do have to come back and touch up a couple of areas with white anyway, so that might be a good time to go ahead and do that. Then of course we have some other detail painting like I mentioned, and I was kind of trying to figure out what to do with that gray color, and I think I've got a pretty good idea. Now they have gray accents on each of the S-foils, both on top and below. And I think what I'm going to do for the gray is we're going to use some Vallejo, and we're going to go with USAF medium gray. I think that's going to be a really nice color, and it's pretty similar to what we see in the instructions, so I think that would be a really good choice. Then of course for the red, we're just going to stick with our standard Vallejo red. We probably will have to go ahead and prime some white before that. And then the very front of the nose, we also have some extra gray sections, some panels that are painted in that same gray, which I'm going to be using that USAF medium gray. And also from the instructions, we see a strip right there on the front of the nose, which we'll have to paint as well. So again, we have a lot of detail painting we're going to have to go ahead and do. The S-foils, the engines, not only that, but the nose, the intakes, a lot of different things we're going to have to go ahead and paint. But that is going to be next time, guys. I've done quite a bit of work today, so I am good. Until our next episode, you guys know the drill. Go out there and get yourself some bench time, have some fun, and build something cool. And we'll see you back here on episode number 6 for Sci-Fi Wednesdays and the T70 X-Wing by Bandai. Thanks so much, everybody. We will see you soon.